How do you navigate ruminating thoughts, anxiety, and panic attacks? Welcome to Normalize the Conversation. I'm your host, Francesca Reigeter, and today I'm joined by Estefania Saavedra, founder of Anxiety Makes Me Funny. In this episode, Estefania opens up about her journey through anxiety, developing effective tools and a support system to help manage her ruminating thoughts and panic attacks. Tune in for insights and strategies on building resilience and showing up for yourself. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am very excited for our conversation, but before we begin, I just want to check in. How are you really?
I am doing really well. I'm excited for our call. I'm doing really well.
I'm happy you're having a good day. I love how you said today because it changes on a day to day, it can change on a moment to moment. And that was something I struggled with for such a long time, with this idea that I had to be like great and upbeat and happy and life had to be perfect 100% of the time for something to be considered good. It's
Yep,
so important that we normalize it can change from moment to moment, day to day, and all of that is part of being human.
that's right. That's right.
So tell us all a little bit about you and your mental health journey.
Yeah, well, um I never really struggled with anxiety up until 2009. Something kind of traumatic happened. And ever since, I've had really bad panic attacks. I've struggled with anxiety. Um, yeah, I mean, it was since 2009, it's been on and off with like, getting help, seeing different counselors, psychologists, psychiatrists, and it was a real struggle, definitely in the beginning, because I didn't understand it and I didn't know what was going on. I would always, before having anxiety, I would hear my friends always talk about like, oh, I'm anxious, or like I feel this way. And I'm like, why? Like I didn't understand it up until it happened to me. And you're in that moment where you're like, am I going crazy? Like, what is going on? I feel kind of like this, like out of body experience, and I'm not myself. I don't know, so it's just answering a lot of questions. So that's when I started, said, okay, I need help. I don't know what I'm going to do. My parents don't understand it because, growing up in a Latino household, usually they'll be like, you'll be fine, get over it, take a nap. Maybe you need to sleep. Maybe you need to eat. Maybe you're hungry. Um, so I literally did it all on my own. I seeked help. I spoke to people. I even was questioning like what I believe in my religion, and um going to doctors and seeing what medications work for me. So the beginning was definitely like just a learning moment for me, like that whole, like, I mean, for a few years. And then it got to a point where I'm like, okay, well, now I need to continue life with this. And I mean, ever since, it's been a roller coaster. I mean, it could be really, really good and it could be really, really bad. I can say that I've developed some OCD because sometimes I struggle with certain things, especially when you have a panic attack in certain places. Um, you kind of like, okay, I don't ever want to go through that again, and so I'm gonna avoid doing that. But again, it's just like everything. It's like a learning. You're learning through life when it comes to anxiety and dealing with mental health. Um, but I say it was a bitter sweet moment for me because I also learned so much from it. I learned a lot about who I am as a person and how I um, care for other people. And I just struggling with mental health myself. I I'm determined to talk about it, to let people know, like, you are not alone. This is something that many people struggle with. It's it's part of human nature. Everybody, I mean, anxiety is an emotion. It's part of us. But it's just some people, they need to learn how to manage. And yeah, it's just this whole, I don't know, since 2009, it's been a learning process for me, and it's made me who I am today. And I'm also, it's sometimes it sucks, but at the same time, I'm also very thankful that I've gone through this, because I'm also able to talk about it and just let people know that you're not alone in this.
You are not alone in this. And to see that you've taken something that for you, first time it happened, you didn't know what was happening, probably for a while in the beginning, right? And when
Mhm.
the people around you are telling you that it's fine, sleep, eat, everything will be great. So you're kind of scared maybe because it's happening and you don't know what's happening and what they're telling you to do isn't working. And
Mhm.
then you have to figure it out on your own. And to go from that to now 15 years later, is that 15 years in 2009? Math,
Wow.
is it?
2000,
I think
yes.
so.
I'm sorry. I'm a finger counter. So
Math, I'm great at it,
wow.
clearly. 15 years later, to be using your voice to advocate and to let other people know you're not alone in this and there's things you can do is just incredible.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's always a bright side to everything. I think, I don't know if you've ever seen that little illustration. I really love it. There's two guys sitting in a bus, and one of them is looking to one side, and it's very dark and gloomy, and he's just feeling down. And the other one is the other side of the bus. It's nice and sunny, and he's just like, oh wow, it's so pretty. So it's always how you look at it. I mean, emotions are always going to be there. I mean, and there's always a time and a place for you to feel sad, for you to feel angry, for you to feel mad, or I already said it, mad and angry is the same thing, but happy. But emotions are there for a reason, but it's just the way and how you look at it. There's always a positive way in that. Like there's always a good in every bad situation. I think I see it.
And sometimes it can be really hard to find that, right? I know for me, something I've been learning lately is reframing my thoughts and shifting them because automatically I go to the world is ending. It can be something as simple as I have an exam for school and
Mhm.
part of going to school, right? It's not something that's ever going to change. Hopefully it does. Like, hopefully we're not putting that much pressure on kids. I wish they didn't do that to us. However, I get it. So, but to me, that can be the world is ending, waiting for like that grade to come out and learning that the world is not going to end. And whether or not I do well, I learned something from it. I'm either going to learn from my mistakes or I'm going to see that I did well and the studying tools that I applied worked and being able to start shifting my perspective from the world's ending until I know I passed to I'm going to learn either way and it's going to help me grow. Being able to find that good piece.
Yes, yeah, 100% agree. Um, yeah, again, we're humans. I think the majority of us always tend to think with the worst. We always think of the negative. It's the same thing, kind of like, for example, and I liked your example too with the exams, but if you get a call or you call someone, they didn't pick up, and you automatically like, oh my God, something happened to them, or oh my God, you're like, you start freaking out instead of saying like, oh, well, maybe they fell asleep or something, or you always go to the worst. And we also tend to think that our thoughts is that they're real, like and it's not, it's just a thought. I've had to learn so many ways and be like, okay, I know that my thoughts are not real. It's just a thought. It's as sometimes we feel like they're so real in the moment, but that's not the case at all. They're just thoughts. It's the same way you think of something. It's not reality. So it's just kind of bringing yourself back into sense and be like, okay, this is what's happening. And then even just like with your senses, okay, I'm at home and it smells nice and fresh and I'm seeing that the lights are on and it's such a nice day. Let me walk outside. Let me smell. So it's just kind of bringing yourself back to reality, because we tend to be in our thoughts a whole lot, for sure.
And not everything you think is true. When you're able to recognize that and recognize when these thoughts are coming up, and hey, this might be my anxiety talking, this may be my depression talking. So, how
Mhm.
can I ground myself in the moment? Like you said, how can I get back into this present moment and figure out what is true for me in this moment and what I can do to manage those emotions? Because, like you said, these are emotions, they exist. But how
Yes.
can we learn to manage them in that moment to get through?
Hmm. Yeah, 100%. Um, for me, a senses thing, like my five senses are very important. I start to, especially when I drive, I tend to get anxious at times, especially at nighttime. I don't know why, but I'll listen to music, or I'll start singing, or I'll listen to like an audiobook, or just get myself, or call somebody, talk to them, make them laugh. Think of something funny, like, oh, you know what? I remember this time, blah, blah, blah. I think my biggest one too is just making people laugh, seeing something funny, or even coming up with sketches or something funny. I'm like, oh my God, this would be hilarious. I'm really anxious at a red light right now. Like, what could really happen? So I just, start thinking of sketches, thinking of things that I could use for my content. Um, so I think that's one of the biggest way that, my social media has helped me with anxiety.
Your business's anxiety makes me funny. Thought it was amazing because laughter, sometimes it's learning to laugh at ourselves, sometimes it's learning to find some joy and something funny in the situation. And when we learn something that works for us, and I love to laugh. That's what I do. I call my friends and try to find something. I'm like, make me laugh. Tell me something silly and funny. Or put on a good TV show. Friends is always a go-to. Right now I'm
Yeah.
watching Frasier actually. It's my new current
Oh,
go-to.
yeah, that's a good one.
Right?
That is
It's a
so
good
good.
one. Finding ways to just laugh in the moment and kind of decompress. I don't know about you, but for me, when I laugh, it kind of is like that, right? All that tenseness just disappears for that moment.
It really does. It's a huge distraction for me, for sure. I can think of all the times where I was feeling very anxious, and I got my people that I always call. I'm like, I know this person, got my back, so let me call them. And right away, they kind of already knew that I was feeling a little off. So they knew, like, that they know that my biggest thing is like just laughter, and they would make me laugh. And I would get distracted, or I'd tell them like, okay, let me put, I'm another person that I love cartoons. I'm a big kid at heart. SpongeBob, you can't go wrong with SpongeBob. I mean, it's hilarious. So yeah, I mean, any way that I can get distracted, and then it does help. It helps. I would say 99% of the time, I start feeling better right away.
And that distraction that makes you feel just a tad happier because it can be so dark when the thoughts appear, when the depressive thoughts are appearing, your brain's ruminating in a million different directions, finding something that not only distracts you, but kind of flips your thought process naturally and turns it into some laughter can just make genuinely all the difference.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. The other day I ate a really spicy chili, and I was like starting to cry. It was like real bad. Like that's another fear of mine, just like eating something very spicy. I'm like, I'm gonna have to go to the hospital. And I started crying. My husband's like, he starts cracking up. And at first I got so mad. He's like, babe, you're freaking out. It's gonna pass away. Just drink some milk. And then right after that, I thought to myself, I'm like, oh my God, this is hilarious. Like I just started laughing and laughing. And again, it just like subsided. It changed the whole moment into like I was panicking from a panic mode to like just outright laughter. Like it was just really, really funny. And it helped. I think the most important thing is finding like what is going to kind of get you out of that funk. And there's so many different ways, and just finding that right little moment for you to come back, to reality.
I'm so glad you're okay, so we can laugh about it. But it reminds me in class last night, one thing my teacher said over and over again was it's all about the meaning we assign to something. So in
Mhm.
that moment when you're assigning that fear, that's what you're taking from it. But then you were able to switch it to some kind of comedy, some laughter. It's going to be okay. This is funny. Once that meaning shifted, your whole perception of it shifted.
Yeah, completely. It was, instead of having a memory of like, oh, that day I panicked. No, that day I had a really hot, spicy chili, and I cracked up about it because I mean, it was so hot, and I think it's one of the spiciest things I've ever tried in my life. But not, I mean, I was cracking up like to the point my husband was like tears laughing because it was really funny. So, that moment, like you said, it changed the whole perspective of it. And now I have a memory of just like laughing about it, freaking out for 1 second and then just laughing, outright laughter.
And what I love is you talking about like your husband being there, right? And having that kind of support system that you weren't alone in it because it's so important that sometimes we feel like we have to go through those panic moments alone. But when you have someone there that's able to hold your hand or able to kind of shift your perspective and laugh through it with you, it can make all the difference from that feeling like I'm the only one and I'm all alone in this to someone's there, someone cares, and we are going to get through this.
Yeah, I think I want to say maybe my biggest struggle is feeling alone. Because I mean, for a while I did feel that way because I felt like nobody nobody understands me. Not like, just at least like my family and my friends just didn't understand it. And I still to this day still kind of struggle with that. But finding like a good support system is so important to me because I honestly feel like I wouldn't be able to do it without them. And it's not only just like my family, my immediate family, it's also my friends, it's also um uh counselors, my therapists, and just people like kind of walking me through things. And I think it's also very important to remember that even though I don't know, this might sound weird, but I know that sometimes I'll feel alone, but you have to be there for like yourself, so it's like I like there are times where I felt really alone, but I'm like, okay, no. And then it's kind of like the same thing when in the beginning I didn't know what was going on. Like I made the steps to go and finding help. I made the steps to like search up, okay, what is going on with me? Like, how can I get help? What kind of medications do I need? So it's just like showing up for yourself. Like, remember that you're not always like, you might feel alone, but you're not, like, show up for yourself
Yeah.
because you're the only person that you got sometimes. I mean, especially in like certain situations, there might be a time where it is just you, but just show up for yourself.
You're your biggest advocate, your biggest cheerleader, and you're the one that's always going to be there in those moments where it's the middle of the night, you're traveling, you're by yourself in a hotel room, you're the one who's there. So, how can
Yeah,
you show up for yourself and treat yourself with that kindness and compassion that you would treat a friend with and that you would want your friend to treat you with, treating yourself as that friend?
I think, I don't know. I hate saying this, but in a way, I'm like, um, anxiety can be selfish at times. Well, for me, personally, I know everybody's situation is different, but for me, when it's always about myself. Like I'm scared or I'm fearful. And then when I start thinking about my friends or my family or something's wrong with them, I'm the complete opposite. I will be there for you 100%. If you need me, I'm going to be there. If something is happening, I'm the one that's like, okay, everybody calm down. I got it. Don't worry. I'm gonna handle it, and even though like once everything starts to calm down, I might freak out afterwards. But it's just always putting myself in other people's shoes, I think, and just being like, okay, I know I sometimes it might feel about me, but I start to think like, okay, like you said, I start thinking about my friends and people that I care about, my family, and it's just how can I show up for other people. If I'm going to show up for other people, why wouldn't I do that for myself?
That's something I'm learning and I'm still working through because there are certain people in certain moments that I'm like, okay, I can show up for you and be here for you no matter what. And then
Mhm.
there's some situations or times with different people that I'm like, I don't have the capacity right now and I
Mhm.
want to. And learning to kind of balance that. What's that boundary of protecting myself, but what's that kind of boundary of being a friend and being a loved one and being that support system and learning to kind of walk that line.
Yeah.
Hard.
It is really, really hard, especially I'm the person that I'm a people pleaser, you know. I want everybody to be happy. I want to show up for everybody and be there. But it is really hard, like you said. Sometimes you also have to make those decisions. Might be harder than another person to say no to someone, but you know, it's just you just got to do it. You have to see what's gonna be best for you. But it's definitely um I don't know, for me, I try to always say like, okay, I want to be there for people. But then I have to think to myself too and be like, okay, well, since I'm showing up for other people, I have to be there for myself too and see what's best for me as well. Because if you don't, it's kind of like going on a plane and you know, they always tell you like you have to put your mask first before you help other people. You have to also show up for yourself because then you won't be able to help everyone else, you know?
Yes, exactly. And I know for me with that, it's been really hard to understand that it's okay to put my mask on first and I don't have to beat myself up for doing
Yeah.
that. Right? That's
Yeah.
another thing I do is I like to make myself feel so guilty for being there for myself. And like you said, if you're going to show up for other people, why wouldn't you also show up for yourself? You deserve to have that support you give to others.
Yes. Yeah, it really is. I think there needs to be a balance for sure. Um, because again, like I said, the anxiety for me could be really selfish at times. And that's when the guilt comes in, like, oh my God, everything is what was me, it's all about me. But we also need those times. Everybody needs those times for yourself to putting yourself first, you know, because you have to take care of yourself if in order to take care of the rest of the people that you care about and that you want to show up for them, you know.
It's so amazing when we are able to not just show up for others, but show up for ourselves and be able to use that to show up for others, right? Because when we give ourselves that compassion, at least for me, when I give myself a certain type of compassion, then I'm
Mhm.
able to see how that feels and how I give myself that compassion. Then I'm able to offer that compassion to someone else. And it's kind of like a cycle, or I give someone else that compassion. I'm like, wow, I wish I had that compassion and learning to give it to myself. So it's been this great cycle of having that support system, people learning how to offer me that support and compassion, and me learning how to offer it to them and to myself.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It's, I guess that's, you know, being compassionate, it just really makes the world go round, you know, and then, you know, it's like you see something and you're like, dang me, like you said, you know, oh, dang, I kind of want to show that compassion to someone else. And then it just, you know, you got to keep it going. And I think that that just makes us stronger, you know, as people, as a community, especially the people that um struggle each and every day with this and they just don't know what to do. You know what I'm saying? And I think I'm showing up, um, or at least trying to show up and being like, hey, you're not alone. We got you. So yeah, compassion definitely makes the world go around.
And that goes back to your point earlier that, it can feel very isolating. You can feel very much alone in it. And when you have that kind of compassion from yourself, from others, it helps take away even just a tiny bit of that loneliness. It's
Yes.
not reasonable to say that you're never going to feel alone in it because it can feel very scary. It can feel very overwhelming. And there are totally times where you're going to feel like maybe you're the only one going through this or you don't know who to reach out to in that moment. And
Yeah.
that's okay.
Mm.
However, you don't have to feel that way. And that compassion really helps bring around that reminder that you're not alone in it, whether it's yourself that's there for you, or it's maybe someone online that makes you laugh like you, or maybe it's listening to a podcast, or reading a book or watching your comfort TV show or another physical person who's there with you.
So many ways. There's so many ways. You are not alone in this. And you have to find it. You have to find it. First, find it in yourself and making that step and saying like, okay, how do I get out of this funk? How do I show up for myself? And finding those ways. You know, I recently have been also going to the gym, and I've noticed that I'm like, I feel like I need that. Like I need that just release of like that exercise, and it gets me going through the day. But just finding whatever it is that is going to help you, that is going to make you feel better. Because even though the thoughts are there, the anxiety can be there, the struggles, the depression, um, as long as they're there, you also show up, right? If they're there, you be there too, and be there for yourself.
And you find the tools that work for you along the way, and those tools can change. From
Mm-hmm.
time to time, you can find new tools that work for you better. For me, for a very long time, I was very much like, I just need to go for a long walk. And once I go for that long walk, everything's fine and great. And that really does help me to this day, absolutely. But I've also learned something that's helping me even more right now in combination with the walking is journaling and having like specific prompts. My prompt last night was tranquility and what that means to me. And when that gets disrupted in places I can find it again. So finding these small different things, journaling worked in the beginning, then it did not work for a while. Now it's starting to work again with specific prompts. So it's finding what works for you in the moment, knowing that it can change a million different times and that's okay.
That is okay. Yeah, I know some people can struggle with like maybe some people are like, okay, this is my routine, this is what I do. And sometimes that, like you said, it might not work and you're gonna have to kind of shift it. And change is good. Change is growth. And you just gotta find something that's, maybe at that moment, whatever you're doing, it's not working like how it did, for years, and you just find something new to do. And that's okay because it's you're learning something new. You're um like I said, it's that growth in you and changing, and we're always changing, we're always evolving, and that's okay. It's a great thing.
It is a great thing, and it's so important to accept. That was
Mm-hmm.
something in the beginning, post-psych ward for me. I was very much, I need to control everything. And my routine was like all the way down to like, I'm gonna have this cup of tea at 10 a.m., then this cup of tea at 1 p.m. Like my day was so structured. And as I continued to go through my healing journey and had some progress and then some steps back, those changes started happening, what would work and what wouldn't work. And I didn't having that much structure was not helpful anymore because I needed to be able to learn to adjust. And it was so hard, especially when you want to control every minute of your life, to accept that things change and that's good. It's good for to have change and it's good to learn to adapt to the change.
Yes.
Something I'm still working on, not something I've mastered in any way, shape, or form. But it's so important.
You know, I think it's also really important to have a routine, I think, and having like, okay, I want to do this, and this, because I'm the complete opposite. I have no routine whatsoever. And I think because I don't have a routine or something where I'm a little disciplined and like, okay, I'm gonna do this day and this day, um, I feel like I can't get anything done. So I'm like, well, might as well not do it then. I don't know what to do because I have no routine. But I think that again, it's like needing to find the balance, in that. And it's okay. Okay, you know what? I missed something at 10 o'clock, and that's okay. But hey, I got something I wanted to do at 3 o'clock. Go ahead and do the thing at 3 o'clock, but not beating yourself up. And that's something that I'm actually learning too, is like, I mean, I don't have to have a 100% structure in order for me to do things. And before I was like, okay, I want to do this, but it would never work for me because I'm not a structured person. But accepting the fact that like, okay, I want to make this little change and adding this to my routine, and then sticking to that for a while, and then maybe adding to that, and that's okay, you know? So I think that's what's been working for me, and accepting like, okay, I know that I'm not like this organized, like to the T schedule, but adding little things has definitely worked for me. So
It's all about finding that balance and what works for you, your lifestyle, your time, your routine.
yeah.
And it doesn't have to be super structured. It can be super structured. It depends what works well for you. And one thing I really love that you said was kind of like the baby steps, right? Like you find one thing that you can add, you try it for a while, and you add something else. It doesn't have to be, I'm listening to this podcast episode. Okay, I need some kind of routine. I'm gonna create this giant schedule and change every single thing about my day starting today. I'm
Yeah.
suddenly gonna go from I don't work out to working out 7 days a week for an hour. You have to do small things reasonably so that you can start managing them and growing them. It's really hard when we try to do like a million things at once, and we're setting ourselves up for failure at that point.
Yep, you said it for sure. Yeah, I agree. I agree. It's those baby steps that you have to do. You have to start with that. Because I failed so many times. I'm like, okay, I'm ready. I got this going on. That and it never happens. So I think the little baby steps definitely help me out so much better.
Yeah, it's really great when you find things that are working, and when you start out and you find something, you're like, oh, I thought that would work, but maybe it doesn't. And you
Hmm.
can really track which activities are helping you. When you have a million things all at once, it's hard to say this specific activity was really helping me versus this one's really harming me and this isn't helpful. So to kind of get that balance, being able to try them out individually can really help.
That's right. Yeah. Because sometimes, and I think that's another struggle for me too, is like when something doesn't work out, I'm like, oh, oh my God, I failed again. But it's not necessarily that. It's just, okay, well, maybe I got to change it up. Maybe I got to do something else. Maybe I got to tweak it somehow to make it work for me, because it might work how I want to do it might work for you, but not for me at the time. So there's something that needs to, change. And that's okay. That's still okay.
One thing I love to remind myself of is with different coping skills, with different self-care practices, you try something and it doesn't work, it doesn't mean that something's wrong with you. It doesn't mean that you failed. It means that you're now one step closer to finding what does work. And you're starting to kind of do that process of elimination. I know for me, in the beginning of the pandemic, a big thing happening on TikTok was like skincare being the same thing as self-care. And I remember calling my dad crying. I was like, I need all these different moisturizers. And he was like, hold on, take a deep breath. How is spending $300 on different moisturizers going to cure your depression? Like, just please explain it to me. He's like, I'm not saying it won't, but I want to know why you think it will. And I was
Mhm.
like, I don't know. People were saying it on TikTok. So being able to realize that all the information you get online and maybe having a really great skincare routine and having that intention behind it works really well for someone. Or maybe meditation works really well for someone, or breath work, or reading, all these different things. But if it doesn't work for you just because you're seeing it online and it seems like everyone else is doing it and it works for everyone else, doesn't mean something's wrong with you.
Yeah, you got it in the money, man. Sometimes it's really hard. You look at something on social media, man. I mean, I do social media. I'm a content creator myself, but and you know what? Sometimes I do get some messages that are like, "Man, I wish I had your skin," or I wish I had time to do your routine," or "I wish I had this." And I'm like, "Man, I hope like, and if anybody that follows me is watches this podcast, it's like don't compare yourself because you might think that I'm like, oh my God, I'm living my best life here, but you don't know, maybe I might be struggling that day, or maybe I had to put that video up because it just made me feel better because I had the worst day, or I had such a horrible panic attack that, posting something different made me feel better. That's something that also I need to learn, like it's just comparing myself on social media or thinking that like I'm watching something that it's going to change I don't know, or like me wanting to change something about me because social media tells me um it's not always as it seems, and that's yeah, man. I mean I post my things, but I'm just like everyone else out there. I got my struggles too, and I try to always see the best side of it, I guess, and always try to stay positive. But man, I have my days too, and I'm not even gonna lie.
It's so hard when you're scrolling online to kind of pay attention to how you're taking things in. And sometimes we internalize it as, well, they have this or they look like this. So that's how I'm supposed to be. And something's wrong with me. And when we recognize those thoughts in our mind, it's really great if going back to what we said in the very beginning, those grounding techniques, right? And recognizing those thoughts are happening, how can I bring myself back into the present moment? But then
Mhm.
on the flip side, I want to say one thing I really appreciate about your content is it's so real. It's so real, it's so funny. It doesn't feel like I I don't feel bad when I'm looking at it. I don't feel like I'm internalizing. I feel like I'm laughing for a moment and things are okay for a moment. So I really appreciate the content you put out. And I hope more content creators continue to put out content like that because it makes all the difference.
It does. And I thank you so much. That means a lot. I do get a lot of people that say that, and I think that's like one of the best compliments I could get off of my social media is like, man, you're so real. And I'm like, I really try because it was so hard in the beginning. I can go back and look at my pictures and how I used to take pictures before. There was always a certain angle or a certain specific way, or I had to put filters on and I had to look this way, a certain way, and and I mean, and I'm not saying that that's wrong because I do it too. I still do filters. I still, do a certain, but also showing the real side of me is what really got me, I think, to where I am and and doing my content. Like I was so closed off ish. But once people started saying like, oh my God, I can relate to this so much. Like you're so real. Like this is so funny. This happens to me too. It gave me that opportunity to like, well, people actually do want to see the real me. And that's good. Like I like that. And yeah, I mean that really means a lot to me, and just because that's my goal. It's like I this is me. That's you're gonna get me, the real me.
There is so much pressure to show up in a brand of what you think the world wants to see. And when you get to that point where you recognize people want to see you as a human, you don't have to be a curated brand 24/7. If you want to get all dressed up and have the right lighting and find that angle and everything, that's amazing. And you have that fun caption, awesome. But it doesn't have to be like this pressure to always be like that. And when we
Right.
kind of find that balance that we can be human too, and people care about who we are and not just the image we're putting out there, I think really changes that perspective on the way we're showing up online. It takes away just a tiny, tiny bit of the pressure of posting online.
Yeah, yeah. I always, sometimes people will come up to me and they're like, how do I start posting? How do I start, or what should I post about? And I always tell everybody the same thing. I'm like, just be yourself. Just be yourself. That's all you can do. It's like, well, wait, what? Really? I'm like, yeah, that's people like to see the real you. I don't know why, but yeah, they want to relate to you somehow. So you just be yourself, that's where you got to start, is being yourself.
It brings it all the way back to that support system. We want to feel connected. We want
Mhm.
to feel like people understand. We want to feel like we're not alone. And
Yeah,
when we see people who are going through what we're going through, it gives us some sense of community, some sense of a support system. When
yeah,
I am having a bad day, but I know there's an Instagram account that always makes me feel seen or validated, that's really great content for me. I mean, I'm constantly going to be on my phone. I'm going to open social media a million times a day. I wish I didn't, I wish I had self-control. I don't. My phone is always next to me. I need more self-control. I actually started a few days ago. Yeah, it's been like 3 days of putting
Yeah.
that lock on. So it's like 5 hours on Instagram and you're done.
Yeah.
It could be a lot less, but
Yeah.
that's how bad I am. So learning that there's certain accounts that I can go to see these accounts make me feel validated. These accounts make me laugh instead of just scrolling aimlessly and on my
Yes.
explore page seeing all these accounts that make me feel inferior.
Oh man, I really like that. I like that you're doing that because, and again, that is something that I struggle with too. That sometimes I'll look at a page and I'm like, oh my God, like why do I feel horrible? And it's just blocking those away. Those block them, don't watch them, put not interested. You don't want to see it. Get it out of there because we do spend so much time on social media. Then take advantage and learn something from it or be like, okay, you know what? I'm going to take this time to learn. I don't know, maybe you want to start cooking. Like, okay, let me look at cooking stuff or recipes or eating healthier. Or, man, this person, one of my, okay, I have to give a shout out to one of my really close friends on social media. Her name is Jenny Solares. And she motivates me and she inspires me every single day. And I think that's the person that has motivated me to like go to the gym and this and that. So I'm like, okay, that's what the people that I want to stick to, that I want to watch, that are going to encourage me, that are going to inspire me with being a social media person. Or also like I want to eat healthier, we can eat healthier, or I want people to make me laugh. You have to really, I really like that you're doing that. And I think that's great. It's just finding those things that are going to help you grow as a person, rather than bring you down, because you'll have like there's so many stuff too that it's just like it brings you down and you can't even tell because you're scrolling so many hours on social media. It's just, but yeah, I agree. I like that.
It's all about finding what's right for you. And we tend to feel like there is not a lot of things we can control online because what comes up is what comes up, but the algorithm. However, we can, like you said, click not interested. We can block, we can restrict, we can mute accounts. It
Mhm.
doesn't, we have a little bit of control. Can we completely control the algorithm? No, unfortunately not. But can we have a tiny bit of control over it by the types of accounts that we're scrolling through and liking? Those are likely to be what's going to come up more for us. So being very mindful with how we're scrolling and the content we're taking in can make a big difference. It can just make a big difference in feeling alone and feeling like no one understands you to feeling like there's the whole community out there who gets it, who's gone through it too, who's going through it, and together you can find what works, or you can laugh, or you can smile, or you can grow.
100%. I agree too. Yeah. It's 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 a struggle, but I mean, you could definitely make it happen. So, yeah.
Yeah, you really can. You've been absolutely amazing. As we are wrapping up, can you tell people how they can connect with you?
Yes. You can find me on Estefi Savvy. You can find me on TikTok, Instagram. I'm starting YouTube Shorts kind of there. Steffi Savvy all throughout social media.
You are awesome. One last message of encouragement and hope you can give to someone who's listening, who's maybe just recognizing, hey, I'm struggling and I don't know what to do.
I think what we were talking about is just showing up for yourself, you know. Sometimes there might not be those helpful resources, or somebody might not be there for you, or you might feel alone. Just remember that you can always count. I know this sounds a little weird, but count on yourself, because sometimes that's all we have. Love yourself, be there, show up for yourself. Because I'm pretty sure, even though you feel alone, I'm pretty sure there's someone out there that really cares about you and wants the best for you. So show up for yourself.
Thank you so much for listening to Normalize the Conversation. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. This podcast is an initiative of Inspiring My Generation, focusing on normalizing the conversation, bringing education and awareness to the forefront, and amplifying global voices to spark change and hope. Inspiring My Generation is a 501c3 nonprofit organization on a mission towards suicide prevention through awareness, conversation, education, and support. Connect with us on Instagram at Inspiring My Generation and visit our website inspiringmygeneration.org to learn more about our work and how you can make a difference.